Tonight on the Your Life Matters Show podcast.
I have sat, for a long time and watched videos of somebody mowing someone's lawn or, just because not only is it satisfying to see, but, knowing that it's for a good cause. Or um, I remember seeing a video where basically they were building a house, but they never said who it was for. And one of the guys that was, down on his luck, having a really hard time in his life at the time, it was actually for him. And I still remember, I saw that a long time ago. I still remember that just because it makes an impact on you.
Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you made the choice to watch our show this evening and joining us for another episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast with your hosts, Steve Hodgson and Dr. Eric L. Davis.
Welcome to the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Today's episode is all about something we often overlook, but that can be life-changing. Simple acts of kindness. When we talk about kindness, most people think of big, grand gestures. But what we've learned, and what the research shows, is that even the smallest acts can make a tremendous difference in someone's life and in their mental health. Something as simple as a smile, a kind word, holding the door, or even mowing a lawn. A study from the American Psychiatric Association highlights that acts of kindness can reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety, enhance life satisfaction, and, most notably, boost social connection even more effectively than traditional cognitive behavioral therapy interventions. A 2025 study found that individuals who regularly engage in kind acts reported lower stress levels and a stronger sense of purpose in life. Kindness isn't just heartfelt, it's practical. Researchers argue that practicing kindness, including self-kindness, acts as a low-cost, empowering, and universally accessible public health action during a global mental health crisis. Think about this. Studies have shown that acts of kindness can lower stress, reduce depression and anxiety, and even improve physical health. For the person receiving kindness, it can be a reminder that they're not alone, that someone sees them, cares for them, and values them. And for the person giving kindness, it creates a sense of purpose, belonging, and joy. Volunteering and charitable actions are linked to lower physical pain, improved functioning, and even longer survival rates. Stress reduction and social bonding are key mediators. Among older adults, volunteering has been tied to reduced mortality. One study found a 44% decrease in death risk after controlling for prior health. A global study with over 17,000 participants found that incorporating brief acts of kindness, alongside gratitude and awe practices, into daily life significantly improved mood, sleep, and overall well-being, especially for underprivileged participants. One study found that actively volunteering just 2 hours per week was enough to lower stress and boost a sense of purpose. Simple acts spark more kindness. Recipients often become givers, creating a positive feedback loop in communities. So, settle in, open your heart, and get ready for a conversation filled with hope and inspiration. Because today, we're reminding the world that kindness is powerful, that every gesture matters, and most importantly, your life matters. Here are your hosts.
Well, howdy, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. I'm Steve Hodgson, along with my co-host, psychotherapist, Dr. Eric L. Davis. Dr. Davis, I think today we have a really, really different show. It's a good show. If anything, it's a feel-good show.
Yeah,
that we're running.
Absolutely, it literally is.
Yeah, I mean, we cover a lot of heavy topics. Even last week we covered senior depression. I mean, we've been going through the 9/11 chronicles, as I call them there. Our country's going through some very strange things at the moment, even at recording time here. There's things happening all over the place that are scary, but let's try to change that mood a little bit. See, tonight's episode is all about something we often overlook, but that can be life-changing. And that's just simple acts of kindness. We talk about kindness, most people think of big, grand gestures. But what we've learned, and also what all the research shows, even the smallest acts can make a tremendous difference in someone's life and in their mental health. Something as simple as a smile, a kind word, holding the door open for someone, or even mowing the lawn. Now, when's the last time you were going into a store and stopped to hold the door open for someone who was either coming in or going out? Do you remember that look of gratitude? Even if it was only for a flash of a second on the person's face. I'm sorry, I was brought up by a police officer. Okay, so you held the door for anybody, male or female, that's just kind. And I still, to this very day at 66, still hold the door for people and stuff. And I see a lot of people surprised by that, and that shouldn't be something surprised. That's just a nice gesture to do for something. Now, I've had doors closed right in my face that you think someone's going to hold it, and they just walk away, and it's like, okay. Now, let's think about this a minute. Studies have shown that simple acts of kindness can lower stress. They can reduce depression and anxiety, and even improve our physical health. Now, for the person who receives that kindness, it can be reminded that they're not alone, that someone else seems to care for them and even values them as a person. And for that person giving the kindness, it creates a sense of purpose, belonging, and joy. Now, tonight, we're going to have a guest that embodies this truth in an incredible way, but that's all I'm going to tell you right now. You're going to have to watch the whole episode to find out more.
Let's be real. Life can feel overwhelming. Sometimes we lose our direction. And in those moments, reaching out for help isn't weakness. It's strength. You know, one of the most powerful things we can do for our mental health is simply to stop and ask for help. Well, look no further. Let me tell you about Waypost Counseling in Indianapolis, Indiana. Waypost was co-founded by husband and wife team Dr. Eric L. Davis and licensed therapist Aaron Davis. They started Waypost Counseling in 2020 because they wanted to create more than just a therapy practice. They wanted a place that truly walks alongside people through life's hardest seasons. And they offer more than just individual therapy. They provide individual therapy and couples therapy, problem gambling disorder, and consulting services as well. They work with adults navigating everything from ADHD to grief, addiction to life transitions. Every journey is different, but our goal is always the same, to help people pause, reflect, and realign with where they want to go. It's actually where their name, Waypost, comes from. A marker on the path, something to help guide your next steps. And for anyone listening who's been thinking, I don't know where to start, this might be the moment. Therapy doesn't have to be intimidating. At Waypost, you'll find honesty, warmth, and a practical approach to real change. They're here to help you find direction and walk with you every step of the way. Whether you are in Indiana or anywhere in the United States, help is just a phone call away. They treat clients in person or using video conferencing directly from your home. If you're ready to start that journey, visit waypostcounseling.com or call Dr. Eric L. Davis at 317-762-0904 or therapist Aaron Davis at 317-659-0179 and take the first step. Waypost Counseling is proudly certified by the Indiana FSSA Division of Mental Health and Addiction and the Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Abuse. That's www.waypostcounseling.com. Your next chapter starts here. You need to make that first call.
So let's settle in, open your hearts, and get ready for a conversation filled with hope and inspiration. Because today we're reminding the world that kindness is powerful. Every gesture matters. And of course, as we always say, your life matters. So Dr. Davis, from a mental health perspective, why do you think kindness has such a profound effect on people's well-being?
Well, from a chemical standpoint, being kind, makes us feel good because it releases dopamine and serotonin. So, which those feel good to the brain. But I think it also enhances social connection. acts of service, they make us feel good because really it's about integrity. I think it's when our conscience and our actions are integrated. Um, and there's even in the helping profession, we call it like a helper's high, where, um, helping other people feels good, and seeing other people improve their lives and do better, or, things get better for them, that it feels amazing. I
Yeah, I was going to
definitely,
say
that's
in your
why I do what I
profession,
do.
you must experience that all the time, that you're
I do. I
helping
mean,
somebody.
it it's a balancing act, I would say, and it's because as a therapist, or any therapist would tell you, we carry a lot. I mean, people don't, we're one of those professions where people reach out typically because they need help, and things are not great. And that's very hard to watch sometimes. Um, but man, when you see somebody, I just spoke to a client earlier today, and he has put 5 years of clean time together. His whole life has changed. And that's really what it's all about. I mean, that to me is better than any financial reward or anything. Somebody asked me one time, they said, if you won the lottery, if you won all this money, never had to work again, what would your life look like? And honestly, I may work a little less, maybe a little, but not much. And I'd probably just do what I do absolutely for free all the time, because I wouldn't have any need to make a living,
Hmm.
So like I would do this regardless. I love it that much.
So, is there a psychological explanation for why small acts of kindness, like a smile, or like I said, holding a door, can improve our mood?
Yeah, because if you think about it, I mean, when our brain is chemicals, and when it releases serotonin, when it releases dopamine, we feel happy, we feel good. So even a small, dopamine hit, can make a big difference. If your brain is flooded with dopamine and serotonin, it's going to be a little difficult to be upset, or um, it's kind of something that works sometimes for individuals, is if they're in a bad mood, sometimes we'll say, just smile. I don't feel like smiling, well, just smile, because when you smile, that kind of triggers things, it takes you back to a happy feeling. And um, yeah, hopefully I answered the question
No,
somewhere in.
well, it's interesting because you're talking about smiling. One of the things when I was teaching chiropractic, to, I owned a company that did that. One of the things we always used to tell people is put a sign right over your telephone that said smile. And people would say, well, they can't hear me on the other end. They can hear a smile.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, think
true.
about how many times you call a physician's office, thank you for calling Dr. So-and-so, how can I help you? Or, hey, thank you for calling that,
Yeah.
that smile just goes a long way. And I would guess for a person who's struggling with depression or anxiety, that random act of kindness has to really help them tremendously.
Yeah. I mean, it also, something that acts of kindness can do, especially when they're just unprovoked, just random, Um, I've had a few times, like at going through a Starbucks or something, and they say, "Oh, your coffee was paid for by the car in front of you." It's like, well,
Hmm.
I didn't even really notice who was in the car or anything, but it makes my day. I mean, like, how is that not? How can that not make your day? And when we do that, I mean, it really, when you pay things forward, um, there's just no better feeling than that. There's no better feeling than doing right.
For many years, I owned Street Smart Incorporated, a web design company, or as Mark gravely calls Street Smart Web Design, as he used to call it on the air. Um, One of the things, a lot of, right from the start, a lot of nonprofits used to approach us for a free website or a low cost website. And to
Yeah.
me, it was from the very beginning, I would do it for free Yeah, I would design the site. I would even host the site and maintain it for free because I always felt like someone like, let's say, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, what they were doing, their mission was so important. Or even the police and fire departments, they were really big. I actually sought some of those out myself because they're doing something to give back to the community. And I don't want part of their budget going to me or to a web design company when they could be using that maybe to buy another bulletproof vest or something else to protect the officers or even for firefighters, something, another
Yeah,
piece of equipment that might help them. You just to have a presence on the web. And people used to say, well, why did you do that? I don't know. It felt good in here. It felt right to be doing that. Okay. If there's a fire, they're going to give their personal time to come and help me.
yeah,
Well, you know what? It's reciprocating. It's like you said, all of a sudden paying it forward. To me, that was paying it forward to all these
yeah,
groups. I mean, after a while, I had to limit how many we did a year because otherwise I
yeah,
do like 25 a year and that become really bad. But we helped everybody. I never turned around and said to someone, "Oh, sorry, we can't help you." I don't think I had the heart to do that. You have to help other people. And I think we're in a society now where we need to reach out and help someone that needs help. I see it, just watch YouTube. I mean,
yeah,
with all the people that mow lawns and, they fix people's homes. There's one guy paints homes, goes to somebody that needs their house painted and, offers free paint job. Or those that, do the power washing for free.
yeah,
And it's not only here in the US, it's around the world that they're doing this. And I think that's a great thing. And I know that you could see the satisfaction in the people's faces that they're helping, but you can also see that little glint of satisfaction in the person who helped them as well.
absolutely. Yeah,
You never
absolutely.
get tired of that. Now, is you talked about serotonin in the brain. Are there any other specific neurotransmitters or brain chemicals involved when we give or receive kindness?
So let me look here. There's dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, um, cortisol, in reverse. So that's the main stress hormone. It's often reduced when we practice generosity or compassion. So, I mean, there really is a chemical thing happening in the brain, based on what we do and how we act. And I think integrity is really important to point out because yeah, studies vary, where as far as like animals and things of that nature, as far as, like do dogs have a conscience? And, there's all sorts of information on there, but we know that human beings do. We know that. And it's not that other animals don't have empathy or things like that, but it's their ability to be empathetic is not as complex as a human being's. And so I think when we practice integrity, meaning that my conscience and my actions are integrated, I mean, I really do feel like I know when I am acting with integrity, I feel my best. I really do. And it goes maybe even deeper than that, where if I'm following the rules and I'm doing everything like I'm supposed to, then everything that I love and value is safe. Like no one can, I'm not giving away the things that I love and value. I'm protecting them by following the rules.
Well, think about, you spoke about pets and stuff with that. All I can think of when you were saying that was, how many times I've seen, a dog going out to save another dog who's drowning and stuff. Or, how many times they help their owners. And I know myself, even sometimes I'm laying in bed and, I may not be feeling too well, and Taz will come up and, I got my Pomeranian will come up and just lay down right next to me.
Yeah.
Knows I'm not feeling well and stuff, and will sit and lay down with me, and just cuddle and stuff. And, they sense that stuff, and I think they have a conscience.
Yeah.
But I think it's the same way for humans when we do that. If your spouse isn't feeling well, or even, your parents, they've gotten to the age and they're laying in bed and stuff and they're feeling, sit with them. Just
Yeah.
hold their hand or something, like we said, that little act of kindness. It doesn't have to be, we're going to remodel your home.
Right. Right. I
Yeah,
mean, it can literally be pulling the chair out for
pull it.
somebody,
Yeah,
holding the door, letting somebody in traffic. I mean, there's, you know,
yeah, I'm really bad for that. I let too many cars go in front of me. Because sometimes my wife, what are you doing? It's like, let them go. I know I've been over there, okay, where nobody will let you out, okay? And you don't want to hear the language I have. Oh, come on. You have to, well, so, you know, I don't know. I mean, there's some studies that suggest that kindness can be more effective than certain self-care routines. Okay, why might helping others feel better than just focusing on ourselves?
while focusing on ourselves is important, helping others, that has a component of human interaction, which is really, I mean, that's crucial. I mean, um, what I can tell you as a therapist is connectedness to love and care is everything.
Mhm.
Everything. I mean, that even if sometimes I encounter clients and it's almost like every relationship in their life will be, it'll be mucked up with stuff. You know what I mean? There'll be drama or things, but at least those relationships are still intact,
Right.
you know, because an intact relationship is still salvageable, and I've had clients that, come through and they have no one, and that human connection. So when you help others, not only are you connecting with them, but you're making them happy. You're spreading joy. That's a big deal.
And that's so important even today. For years this country was founded on people helping one another. I think we may have even talked about in one of the other episodes where, you had one person, a couple of people, they were in charge of planting and stuff. The other ones were hunters.
Mhm.
And, we worked together and we helped each other. And it seems now that, and I don't know why we're so polarized against helping one another,
Yeah.
that we're afraid to go in and help the people that need help. And it's really wild when you think about that. Um, what about physical symptoms like tension and blood pressure? Can practicing kindness actually help
Yeah.
those physical symptoms?
Yeah, absolutely. It When you help other people, even if you're being physical, like if you're, helping somebody with something, um, it definitely can reduce stress because there again, it's that connectedness. It's an experience that you're sharing with others, So it makes a big difference to reduce stress or uh, help a person feel better physically. Um, here's something I can tell you, even when I haven't been at my best. So like if I've been sick, there are a lot of times where and I know I'm not asking for a gold star for this. I know everybody does stuff like this, but it was like, no, you know what? I'm gonna make it at, like, like I've got a client scheduled. And so just that human interaction or knowing that there's another person, relying on me, sometimes that's a big motivator. I mean, obviously. So I think that the human interaction aspects of things are important mentally, physically, all the above.
I mean, you don't lay in bed like, I'm dying, help me. I can't do anything today. Now, can kindness be contagious?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I think part of what speaks to that, and you and I have talked about this some, but I mean, I have sat, for a long time and watched videos of somebody mowing someone's lawn or, just because not only is it satisfying to see, but knowing that it's for a good cause or I remember seeing a video where basically they were building a house, but they never said who it was for. And one of the guys that was, down on his luck, having a really hard time in his life at the time, it was actually for him. And I still remember, I saw that a long time ago. I still remember that just because it makes an impact on you, to see that and to see that. The other thing is random acts of kindness. It's instant gratification most of the time.
Hmm.
I mean, that's you get to see the result of what you've done. So, I mean, I could go on and on, but I'll stay.
I'm one too that I watch YouTube as my TV
Yeah.
most of the time, not all the time. But yeah, I do watch people like Al Blades, Midlife Stockman, all these people that are out there. Just, they spend 2 days sometimes at someone's property, and maybe in my younger days, possibly, I might
Yeah.
have been able to do that. I did mow people's yards myself when I was younger, but I don't, I didn't have the equipment these people had. If I had an acre to mow, it was push mow
Yeah.
that acre, and that was a little tough to do. Even, now at my age, forget it. Just thinking about it, watching these guys do it, I start sweating,
Yeah.
but you're right, that instant gratification that at the end of that video, you're going to see the reward. You're going to see 9 out of 10 times, you're going to see the homeowner's face.
Hmm.
Someone, and you hear their story throughout, you start to learn more and more. Then sometimes you think, okay, they're just lazy people, not doing
Yeah.
it. But all
Mhm.
right, so even if one or two of them are lazy, 9 out of 10 of them are helping the people that need that assistance.
Yeah.
Now, you see, I go back and I remember, volunteering, in my life. Okay. I talked about the business side, but I mean, when I grew up in New York City in Greenwich Village, Manhattan. There was a church, St. Anthony's Church, St. Anthony in Padua. They had a feast, which I used to volunteer for every year and worked. I used to call bingo twice a week. Okay, I think that's
Yeah.
probably why I started smoking after a while, because there was enough cigarette smoke I used to inhale anyway. So, by the time I was 21, 22, what the heck? I already have it in my lungs. I used to help the senior citizens group that was there. There was a brother Vincent who passed away recently, but my grandmother used to be part of that group too. And they would do arts and crafts, and they'd have different people come in, and you talk to them, and they do old dances, and it was like it gave them that sense of feeling and connection. Okay, a
Yeah.
sense of socializing. Whereas a lot of these people, like including my grandmother, really, except my Uncle John, who had Down syndrome, gave someone to talk to all the time and
Yeah.
to communicate with. You talk to my mom. That's why I always say when I grew up in Manhattan is because all my other relatives, they moved out to Long Island and stuff. And my mom wouldn't leave my grandmother. She was the last one there. So we lived in the apartment building next door where everybody
Mhm.
else had these houses and nice backyards. Okay. I had the concrete jungle around me,
Yeah.
but it made me who I was today. We used to also run plays for children. We used to do all these different things. Uh, all the different plays that we'd make up, talent shows and all that stuff. Just gave the kids something to do. We'd make sets and lights and all that stuff. I was actually a church organist for many, many years, as well as an usher, commentator, all that stuff. I mean, really, the church organist was actually an incredible job. Now in Indiana, think about it. You could help with your local churches. A lot of them will go out and clean up the town. They pick one day a year, and everybody gets together. Sometimes even all the community churches, in that community. Like I was in a small town of Westport, all the churches got together, and they went around and they helped clean the streets. If there was a yard that was a mess, they went and cleaned up the yard. If there was an old person who really needed help, cleaning leaves and branches and stuff, we'd go in and take care of all of that.
Mhm.
The churches got together, they paid for a dumpster. And so everything could be brought to the dumpster and be taken away. And actually, 9 out of 10 times, if I'm not mistaken, like company like Bestway would donate the dumpster for the
Yeah.
day, because everybody was getting together to do things. Um, you know, the big thing is the food banks that the churches have. I know the Westport Christian Church I went to, we used to go to Walmart twice a week. And
Yeah.
just because something would say, it expires on, September 11th, let's say. Okay, I can think of 9/11 easily. September 11th, 2025. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just
Yeah.
means they can't sell it anymore. And as long as the food is still good and it's good food, there are people that need food.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
used to see a lot of seniors and elderly people. I mean, it actually became a little bit of a joke. They would start lining up at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and the giveaway wasn't to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But they would take numbers. We actually had to give them out numbers
Wow.
so that, at 3 o'clock, we didn't have all these people find. I was here before you. No, well, if you had a number, we'd take it number one, number two. I used to first look at it and say, what's going on? What people are just taking advantage of this. As a senior now, I know, no, it's not. They're living on a limited income. So volunteering at a food bank, it's another great thing you can do. Heck, I think I ran 2 or 3 collections for natural disasters in Decatur County in Indiana.
Yeah.
From flooding and stuff, the all the different disasters. We'd collect water, cases of water, and I mean, I know that one of them we sent 3 complete semis full of stuff. I wanted to say it was in Texas. Well, what was the one in Louisiana? Katrina,
Yeah.
Hurricane
Yeah.
Katrina and
Hurricane
stuff.
Katrina. Yeah.
Yeah, we sent so much down to them, food, everything down there. And we had a connection where we were able to get the products down there, and a local company gave us their semi to load the semi and stuff. And, it felt good. Not to get the pat on the back. I didn't even want the newspapers, oh, we need to write you up. No, you know what? If you want to write up, we're collecting, let's come and collect, and help us out here.
Yeah.
That's fine, but don't write about Steve. This isn't about Steve. It's a much bigger picture, and just, hey, if you got a question, call Steve. Just leave it at that. Um, older people have medical problems. I'm fortunate enough that I had in Indiana neighbors that helped me do some of the heavy things that had to be done. I had one neighbor who would fix my car. I mean, he was a mechanic. He would fix my car. I had one across the street who was the minister's son, who, once he found out that I had lung disease, when it would snow, everybody in Westport knew Steve would be outside shoveling his driveway and his steps. Okay, I would do it 2, 3, 4 times. But obviously, cold air wasn't my best friend
Yeah.
anymore. But it would start to snow, and about 20 minutes in, I'd hear a shovel outside. And I'd look out the window, and there was Chris. He was in there, shoveling the front of my house. Then I had other friends that, the guy who owned the funeral home, Mike Casper. He'd come around, he'd plow. He had his little riding mower that had a plow in front of, thing, and he would do that. But then as he came back around, he would sit and he'd ask me to move my cars. And I'd move the cars, and he would completely plow in front of my house, which was really,
Yeah.
really nice. So, again, he didn't have to do it. He didn't do it for money. He did it because it was something that was just felt good and it felt right
Yeah.
about
You
it.
know, I wanted to tell you about this. Something that I heard a long time ago that has always stuck with me is one of my friends was telling me, he said, what do you know about gratitude, or whatever? And it's like, oh yeah, well, that's when you're grateful for stuff and thankful. And he said, society has it wrong about gratitude. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, gratitude, we talk about gratitude as a feeling, he said, but think of gratitude as an action. And what he meant by that was, he said, he asked me, he said, what was your first car? And it was a 1976 Plymouth Fury. light brown outside and inside. And I loved that car. I mean, it was like a big, huge boat. And he said, "So you were grateful that for that car?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, how did you treat the car?" I was like, "Oh, I waxed it and, washed it all the time, cleaned it up." And he was like, he's like, "That's gratitude." He was like, those actions are gratitude. And so he was saying that gratitude or our relationships are like a garden, that if I'm grateful for my garden and I take care of it, it grows more beautiful, it grows larger, it can do more, it can produce more, I mean, all those things. And I've just that's always kind of stuck with me. And I try to think about, like, how would somebody know that I'm grateful for whatever it is without me saying a word,
Mhm.
And that's yeah. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Now, Dr. Davis, for someone struggling with mental health, what are some simple everyday acts of kindness that people should start with?
Really, anything you can think of. I mean, anybody that you interact, you don't have to just walk around, hello, hello, but I mean, just a nice word to someone, or holding the door for somebody, or letting someone cut in line if you're in line at the grocery store and you have a full cart and they've got a couple of things. I mean, anything like that. Um, if you're out in the parking lot of a grocery store, offer to put somebody's cart away for them. I mean, anything works,
Mhm.
but
And there's so many of things that you can do, so many small little gestures. I mean, 99% of what you just said, I do on a regular basis.
yeah,
I mean, really, it's if someone's standing behind me and they got one or two items and I have a half cart full of stuff, I used to tell them, go ahead. They're like, you sure?
yeah,
Go. Where am I going? It's not like I'm in a
yeah.
hurry to go someplace.
Like,
Go
I'm
ahead,
gonna be here for a minute anyway,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you know,
It's going to take them a while to run up my stuff. So,
yeah. And I know we were talking before, but you know, ha- buy somebody a cup of coffee. If you're, who knows? If you're going through McDonald's and you look in the rearview mirror and there's a little kid, say, did the little kid have a Happy Meal or something? Can I pay for the Happy Meal? I mean, there are tons of different things that you can do, and uh, you know, most of them don't even cost any money. I mean, you can always help somebody with anything. I mean, yeah.
so how can workplaces or even families incorporate kindness in ways that genuinely boost mental well-being?
So one of the things I've seen different places do is they'll have, like, I'm trying to think of some of the names, but like, basically they'll have a stuffed animal or something that in staffing, someone gets the stuffed animal because they've done a good job, or something like that. And the
Hmm.
thing is, like, whoever had it last chooses the next person, and they, say why. There are things such as that. They can incorporate employee of the month. But really, I mean, I think one of the greatest ways that a workplace can, genuinely boost mental well-being is by having a feedback loop, is what we call it. But where employees feel heard. So not only do your clients need to feel heard, but the employees need to feel heard. And, when you have open dialogue and so forth, I think that brings a lot of mental health wellness, because people feel valued. They feel like they're part of a team.
And that works the same way with families. How many times, to your aunt, uncle, even your parents, you say, yeah, I love you, love you, and stuff. But how many times have you really taken 5 minutes, even do it in writing if you want to, just send them how much you genuinely not only love them, but truly appreciate them.
Yeah.
Okay. And you feel privileged and, to have them in your life. Even it could be even with a loved one or friend. It doesn't even have to be a family
Yeah.
member. It could be a close friend. How much you value them. That little thing you may not think is much, but that touches a person's heart when they read that
Yeah.
and they hear that. It's It's something, it's just a little something we can just do. Just go out of
Something
your way and do it.
something that my family started doing, years back, like for my 40th birthday,
Mhm.
they gave me a binder with letters from everybody, and that means the world to me. I have it sitting on my shelf, over here, and it's, um, there have been times when I've been, just having a rough day or something, and I'll actually look through that, and it reminds me like, hey, they love me and they're on my team, and life is deeper than whatever problem I'm experiencing right now. Just that's something that I think has been really cool. And so we've been doing that more often when there's milestone birthdays.
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so easy to do. Now, is there a danger of compassion fatigue or burnout when you give too much? How do you balance that kindness with self-care?
So that's really it can be really difficult to do. One of the things that they basically drive into like pound into our brains in school to be therapists is the importance of self-care. And that's why. Because if I don't, if I'm not taking care of me, I can't be at my best to help other people. And so there is, compassion fatigue is something that we really look for, um, because or we also call it empathy fatigue, empathy fatigue, compassion fatigue. But, a perfect example, I became a therapist because I love what I do. I do this because I want to help people. I want to make the world a better place, etc. But with it comes all sorts of, I have to hear difficult things, and I have to, um, hear awful experiences and things. And so it's really important that I make sure that my needs are met as far as, if I start noticing that I'm not feeling as empathetic, or, I don't have as much compassion, or I'm not as excited about going to work, then, what they teach us in schools, I need to kind of stop for a minute and evaluate everything that's going on, and see, am I meeting all my needs? Because if I'm not meeting my needs, how can I meet anyone else's? So,
Right?
yeah,
Because you
but
got to
that's a
take care
very
of
real
yourself
risk.
before you
Yeah.
can help somebody else. You got to make sure you help yourself as
Absolutely.
well.
And we call it people pleasing too. Like you can't just live to please everybody all the time. That's just going to burn you out. So really, I could talk about this forever, but there's passive, there's aggressive, and then there's assertive in the middle. And so what we teach in therapy is assertiveness skills, where it's okay to say no sometimes. If you have to say no once, it doesn't mean no forever. It doesn't mean no, I'm not interested in helping at all. It just means I really can't do that right now,
Hmm.
you know.
Well, I'm going to ask two more questions and then we'll wrap up today. But more of a theoretical question. The first one. Okay, if more people practice small acts of kindness regularly, what impact might that have on society's mental health?
And honestly, I think if more people practice kindness, the world would be such a better place. I mean, really, because if you think about it, all of the problems in the world truly stem from people treating others like they wouldn't want to be treated. I mean, that's really, so I always just go back to, and I'm just like anybody else. I mean, I have feelings and emotions. I'm not perfect by any means. Um, and I struggle with things same as everybody. But if everyone lived where their conscience and actions were integrated, I mean, I think that the mental health of society as a whole would drastically increase, because we would lose so much unneeded stress, so much unneeded drama. Um, and I think the physical implications, I think we'd see less, um, you know, physical problems, and just how society worked together as a whole that'd make a huge difference.
It's
So it
hard to
really
have
would.
hatred when you're doing something nice for somebody.
Mhm. Yeah, very
And,
true.
that smile, it's hard to, well, unless they're psychotic, it's really hard to smile and say, now I'm going to kill you.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
takes it takes us down a step. And I think, and when we start to show compassion to people, we're taking the stress of life down a step or two, and we're becoming people again. And not what we've been programmed to become. And in today's world, we need to take about 4 steps back, okay, to really help out. So the last question I would ask, what would you say to someone who doubts that small gestures can make a big difference? I mean, what do they need to do?
I would challenge them to just try it. Just try it. Try doing nice gestures every time you feel like you have an opportunity for a week straight, and see, does it make a difference? My guess, would be that they'll probably notice a big difference in a day. I mean, because it really, what I can say about being a therapist, is what I love about my job is, I mean, the reality is I love helping people and I would help people anyway. But it's like, wow, like I get to help people and I can make a living doing this, I'm like, I can buy groceries and have a life. Like, this is amazing. I mean, it could not get any better for me as far as loving what I do.
Well, we've had a great conversation today. It's actually pretty incredible. We've seen something, as simple as mowing a lawn, a smile, any kind of act of kindness, and could change not someone's day, but their entire outlook on life. Our guest reminded us that kindness doesn't have to be complicated or expensive for that matter. It doesn't have to take a lot of time either. Like we've said, just holding the door open for someone takes 3-4 seconds. Not that you're spending your whole afternoon standing there holding the door, at Publix so that everybody comes in and out. It doesn't require special training. It just takes a willing heart. Truth is, every single one of us has that within us to do that. Okay, we also learned from Dr. Davis how these acts of kindness aren't just good for the people we serve, but they're actually good for our own mental health too. Kindness reduces stress, lowers anxiety, builds connections. It creates a ripple effect that spreads from one person to another, from one neighborhood to the next, and even across the world. So I challenge all of you that are watching tonight, after watching this episode, in the next couple of days, go out and do one small act of kindness. Heck, if you want to do more, you can do more, but at least do one act of kindness. Hold a door, write a thank you note, pay for someone's coffee, as we've talked about, or even give simply a smile to someone, a stranger that's walking by. I mean, don't do it eerily, to a woman, but, a friendly smile, okay? You may never know the impact that single gesture makes, okay? But I promise it matters a lot more than you think, because you may not see the result of that, because that's it. You have that one interaction for a second, you walk away, but you never know what that did to that person and for the rest of their day. Now, remember, please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and change so that we know that you never miss an episode. Leave us a comment, okay? Even about our guest today, how much you appreciate what they do and stuff. Remember, subscribing helps us get our message out to more people who may need our help. That's the other reason we do this. You can visit our website at yourlifematterspodcast.com, where you can also find our merchandise page. Okay. As we said the last one, you want those pajamas you can wear, or also you can purchase some licensed shirts, hats, and so much more. The show tonight and our guests showed that compassion and action, what it really looks like. Okay, and we want to thank them and thank you for joining us here on the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Because at the end of the day, kindness is powerful, hope is contagious, and above all, always remember, your life matters. God bless you, and we hope to see you all again next week.
Thank you.
The Your Life Matters show has 2 wonderful interviews we conducted with 2 amazing groups that practice random acts of kindness every day. We did not wish to edit these interviews and cut anything out of what they had to offer and about their organizations. We also did not want to make this a 2-hour episode. Next week, we will present these interviews in full as part 2 of our show, Random Acts of Kindness. Please be sure to join us.
Thank you for joining us for this week's new episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Please be sure to join us again next Thursday for another great episode with your hosts, Steve Hodgson and psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis. Please remember to subscribe to our channel if you have not already done so, and hit the like button and leave a comment. Your help with this helps us reach a wider audience that may need our help.